Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are now here at Ricochet Community Call number 4. We got some cool stuff to talk about today, so let's get into it. First off, we're going to walk through some just numbers, basic numbers on stream markets, total value streaming, average streams, just to see what's going on with the state of our users are in our stream markets. We're then going to reveal the Figma for the new UI we have coming up for our DApp. And then lastly, Mike is going to give us the latest scoop on progress on our Launchpad and Rex token projects. So let's check out the numbers. So right off the bat, we can see in our TBS, Matic USDC is the most popular market. It's got, over 40,000 per month streaming into it. However, if you go down, you'll see that it's actually got an average stream below 1,000. That's probably the fifth, maybe the seventh largest right there. So it kind of gets to show the amount of streamers that are in that one, pretty high. A lot of popularity there. With the Matic ecosystem and all, and like the marketing we put into that market, it kind of makes sense. You also see that ETH to USDC. Actually, what else we got here? We got wrap Bitcoin to USDC. It's got the largest average stream. Take that as you will. Maybe that's a bear sign for Bitcoin. Who knows? Interesting observation there. What else we got? We have.
I see something interesting. So we're gonna be adding RIC tokens to all the pools, right? So the subsidies we did last week are going to run out tomorrow. I think it usually ends up running out tomorrow around like noon or something. I forget the calculus. But what we're going to do is we're just going to readjust, or we're going to re-up all the pools with equal amounts of RIC. So obviously, if you're a RIC farmer trying to get the RIC token so you can vote, obviously like this slide right here shows you which pools are probably the best to get into. I don't know if there's a way that we could like make a website that has this in real time, but that would be really useful, because then people who want to just like harvest RICs, like you can select whichever the lowest pool is that's acceptable for you. Like, obviously some people don't want to sell ETH or Maker or Matic or whatever. So the stablecoin pools would be what they would want to look for, like the lowest stablecoin pool. Yeah, all the assets pretty much trade together. Like, doesn't matter if you're buying Maker, you're buying Matic, you're buying Bitcoin, you're buying ETH. They're also highly correlated, and it does make sense. So anyway, other thing I noticed on the volume is just to add, like, I am obviously farming my own governance token. So like I'm a pretty good amount of this. Like, I'm not going to say how much, but I'm a pretty good amount of that volume. So just keep that in mind when you see these like high numbers that like I'm streaming. I'm pretty sure Sunny's streaming. So we obviously are going to invest in getting our governance tokens so we can vote. So just keep that in mind that I'm definitely not more than half on any of the pools. Maybe there's one pool where I'm like half the volume, but anyway, obviously I'm going to try to farm like 51% of my token, but I dialed that back. I dialed that back in these markets just because I didn't want to like make it, I don't know. I mean, I just didn't want to blow up the numbers. So I feel like we have kind of an advantage because the fees go into the DAO treasury, which we own. But at the same time, like in the future, more people will own that. And so far, the only actions we've taken as this treasury to withdraw funds have been to like repay people. So it's not like we're paying ourselves with the fees that we collect. So in a way, I'm essentially just adding liquidity to the treasury, but also just keep in mind that, some of the stream is obviously me. Because I want RIC.
Yeah, I think a couple of things that are like apparent right off the bat is if you look at like the USDC to ETH and the USDC to Bitcoin markets, you'll see like their total value streaming is like over 10,000, but their average streams are like kind of in the hundreds. So that kind of points towards those markets being used by just conventional users who are just really trying to use Rex in a very conventional way to basically real-time invest in Ethereum and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that's
another
kind of
observation.
Like a development that we like to see. What are you saying, Mike?
Another observation, just to show you like the volumes you see here. I'm not streaming to any. I don't know about Sunny. Maybe maybe I'm streaming a little bit to like ETH DAI and from USDC to Maker or USDC to ETH or Bitcoin. And I'm maybe streaming a little bit of DAI to ETH, but not a lot. I'm not being like competitive there. So I'm just doing something responsible, maybe like $100 a month. But if you look at the volume here so if you look at the volume from USDC, Bitcoin, USDC, those pools are completely unsubsidized and no one from the team is streaming to them. And those pools are still generating well over $10,000 in volume per month. So that I think is a good positive sign. If we, remove the subsidies and just let it be natural, we still actually do get a lot of volume, and I expect that volume is from people. It's probably based on the numbers, a lot of people doing a little streams, and then there's probably a few people that are doing bigger streams. But in that case, like you're not getting any RIC, and I think that's pretty clear to people that they're not getting any RIC from streaming to that. So there was a big gap. If you remember, before we like launched the new markets, there was like a 2 or 3 week gap where we just didn't subsidize anything. And this was about where the markets were. I think they were a little higher because there was obviously a delay before, certain people figured out that there were no more subsidies. But, at this point, they haven't been subsidized for probably like a month. I don't know how long we stopped the subsidies, but it was several weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that kind of like subsidy, the change in mindset creates and kind of points towards people desiring the RIC token. You can kind of see that in the just the TVS here. So the jump between the unsubsidized markets to the subsidized markets is pretty significant. You can see the jump in the TVS there and the jump in the average streams from ETH DAI and then below to the subsidized markets. So pretty significant. Good looks all around. Trying to think if there's anything else worth pointing out.
No, it's looking really good. I mean, the fees that come in are pretty stable. I expect once we subsidize all the pools that all these numbers will go up. At least I hope.
Yeah.
And,
so you want to take them with like grain of salt because there are people who are Rick rolling their stream both ways to try to farm the governance token, which is obviously going to create like pretty significantly large streams because people just dial it all the way up. But
but you can. What would have been nice is if we take these same charts and we break them out for like subsidized, unsubsidized. So you can see like two charts, compare. So, cause
it also would have been interesting if we
Bitcoin
took out like
USD.
wallets that were streaming both ways and we like pointed those out. Deduce those.
That would be good too.
Cool.
All right. Well, things to do. Maybe we go on to the next thing.
Things to do.
Do you have any other comments on this? Should we move on?
Yeah, we can move on.
All right. Great. What's next?
So our new UI, time for the big reveal. To the Figma we go. All right. Zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, so Sunny made some diagrams and we sent them over to a contractor that I use, and they asked us to do Figma designs, that it would be easier. And so we didn't produce the Figma designs. I actually asked them back. I kind of explained what I was looking for and asked them, hey, can you guys just produce the diagrams for us? Like you kind of, at this point, they've worked with me at like 3 or 4 times. I worked with 4 different people from this one agency. You'll see them on the GitHub. They're the Integral team, which I think is a good name for them because they're definitely like integral to I don't know the right way to say that, but so this is what was produced. The option was go to like a Sushi swap style interface. One, I thought that would just take a lot of time, and 2, it's just totally completely different look and feel than we have right now. So I actually preferred and basically gave the directive of making it look more like the Sushi Swap LP farms where there's like rows, and make it look more like Pickle where there's these rows and Staked Out and Yearn. So a lot of these like yield aggregators. So that's where you get this, it's sort of expandable columns or expandable rows with the interaction. And then we also split out the pages kind of like on Superfluid where there's like a currency page. So yeah, Sunny, if you want to give a tour and then take it from here, I just give some background on how we got to these.
Yeah, so we got the main page where you basically got all the stream markets listed. You hit the drop down, you're able to specify your input rate, your stream rate pretty much, and then hit start, stop. You can see your balances. One important addition here is the addition of the date at which your stream runs out, so that people can or set the calendar and make sure that their stream doesn't hit zero and they risk running liquidation. Or we got a good keeper, but you still want to stay safe and avoid those kinds of liquidation losses at the hands of the superfluid protocol. You can then switch over to the wallet tab, which allows you to do your upgrade and downgrade as opposed to scrolling to the bottom of the DApp like we do currently. So we can just keep it nice and tidy in one spot.
Yeah, and we'll eventually have your wallet listed, but it's just more work to do to like input a table there that has your balances from your wallet. So we'll get to it eventually, but for now it's just a separate page for upgrade downgrade.
Yeah, and then just one nice convenient menu like you have in Sushi Swap pretty much.
Right.
Yeah, and then kind of Sushi Swap style menu on the side to access different resources. So that's the gist of it. I love the color scheme. I love the way this looks. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I was actually really happy with this group. I'm glad to see that they actually even integrated my changes, because initially it wasn't like invest in wallet. I forget what the words they used to use, but this is a mobile view of what's there, by the way. So this is what it would look like if you shrink the screen up. But yeah, so it was nice to see they already integrated changes. But this cost $1,200, by the way, so $1,200. I think it was a great deal. These guys did a really good job. So yeah, and then building it out will probably cost $5,000 to build it out. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, maybe in the proposals channel, you can make proposals on how we can better pay for contract work. But I think it's I've been working with these people for almost maybe like 9 months, working with them since like February or March. So they're great. Really happy with everything that they do. And I think their rate is fair. It ends up working out to $60 an hour, by the way. That's the rate that ends up happening, which is about $120,000 a year, which is about what you would pay for a good engineer, especially because we get a full stack. A designer, they have front end, back end people. It's great. So
yeah, looks like they crushed this one. So happy to see this come about.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the reveal. Let's get back into talking the latest on Ricochet. Let me see if I can full screen this. There we go. Cool. So project updates. Right, let's get into it.
Yeah, so I put this diagram together to sort of show how the launch pads would work. The idea is like anyone can make a launch pad, but like listing a launch pad on the Ricochet website, we're obviously not just going to list anyone on the website. It would have to meet some criteria. But the way it would work is you basically have an originator. Originator can be really anyone, and they can go ahead and create one of these IDOs or initial DEX offerings, I guess is like the underlying acronym that I used here. And yeah, you specify your input token, your output token, how much and how long. And that goes ahead and creates a clone from a Launchpad factory. And then you can go ahead and stream to the clone, which is your specific IDO that you create as an originator. And then what ends up happening is periodically someone calls distribute. In this case, it makes sense that the beneficiary of the IDO calls it, because they're basically the ones claiming the rewards. And so what happens when they call distribute is, the output tokens get transferred to the streamers, and then the input tokens, which are what is used to buy the token, get split 90-10 between the beneficiary and the DAO. So we're not collecting any of the output tokens. The fee is going to be taken on the input tokens, presumably because that'll be more stable currency. And we're also not, I don't think, the Ricochet DAO and Treasury should be in the business of like charging a fee on the project tokens, because really the reason to justify the fee here is because we create this fair launch, we remove this minor extractable value, and so we do solve a ton of problems. And we also create a rather unique experience for people who are participating in the ICO. So rather than just taking the 2% fee here, I think 90-10 is where we'd start. If projects come and they don't like it, they could take their business elsewhere. I guess that's the I say, but yeah, I mean, it'll just work like the future. Oh, so my Siri turned on. It'll just work like the current 2%, which is the intention is to keep it high initially to help fund the project early. And as we can like scale out and get more volume, it makes sense to just lower it, right? So, and then we'll also be able to get a lot of efficiencies out of it. We were talking about, better ways to get fees, but so yeah, for now, I think 90-10 is fair. And I think it's, kind of in line with what you might expect if you did like an IPO, right? I don't know if it makes sense to compare it to other ICO platforms, but I could just because I don't have any numbers on those, but I imagine that if launching an ICO, on a centralized exchange, is also like very expensive. Launching on a DEX is obviously pretty cheap. But then again, you don't solve any of the problems around minor extractable value, fair distribution, and things like that. So yeah, so that's that. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, and then on the subject of fair distribution, I think one of the things with ICOs is like when you do like a lump kind of offering and you have people just rush in and buy the token, that kind of like creates a lot of like kind of like a confusion around the pricing and the valuation there. I think, when you kind of distribute it and you kind of like elongate the distribution of the ICO through something like a Rex Launchpad, you're really making price discovery a lot more efficient, fair, and distributed. And at the end of the day, it becomes a very, very kind of smooth enough process. So
yeah, everyone who participates gets the same deal. We don't solve the problem of some people will learn about it first, and so they'll be able to buy it at a cheaper price. We can't solve that problem. That's like an investor relations problem. People need to figure out how they can make it fair so that everyone knows about it. We are just doing it by like only leaking a small amount of our tokens, taking breaks and things like that. And that's kind of helping, but other projects will need to make sure like everybody knows this is going to happen, or at least they make sure of as much people as they can. But what it does solve is it's so everyone gets the same deal and there's no way to cheat anyone, right? There's no way to front run someone or sandwich someone. Everyone gets the same deal, which is just the same. It's as fair as Bitcoin mining because it's the same rate. It's the same idea where there's Bitcoin emits at a certain rate. The block reward is a certain rate. And then as a miner, you earn a proportional amount to the block reward as you're mining, right? So it's basically the same mechanic. And there really isn't a good way. There's not going to be a good way to cheat it either.
Yeah, and like calculating the value of like the ICO token in a Rex Launchpad is as easy as taking the total value streaming into the market, into the ICO Launchpad, and dividing that by like the rate at which tokens are distributed. So just dividing those two gives you the value of the token, and it becomes dynamic as a result.
And we have to thank Gregory because I had that backwards in our specification for the Launchpad. And I also had it backwards in my code at the time that he like corrected it. So thanks, Gregory. I don't know if he's here. No, he's not here.
But yeah, what else was I gonna say? Yeah, you can think of this just like subscribing to an ICO pretty much. So good stuff.
Yeah, you subscribe, you dollar cost average, you get the same deal everyone else is getting at that moment in time. All right, that's enough. Yeah, so the other project we have are the Rex tokens, right? So, and I think, initially I think I call these Ricochet tokens, but I think what we'll do when we roll them out just as branding is, Sunny suggested this idea of Rex as our token instead of Rick, which obviously makes much better sense and sounds awesome. We could get like a little dinosaur emoji going, but these Rex tokens are basically going to be a whole series of tokens. This is just the Sushi Swap one. And by the way, this was made and tested on mainnet. So this does work today. We do have this. What we don't have is a way for you to easily get the tokens, but you could manually make a SLPX token and call distribute on it. In fact, I think I have some. I should probably call distribute or harvest. So anyway, the other projects that we're looking at doing this with, the one at the top of the list is Idle. And the reason that Idle is at the top of the list is because we were introduced to them through Fran, and they are just recently launching on Polygon. At the time I spoke with them for a little bit, they basically were getting onto Polygon. They didn't have anything going, but I think today they do. So beyond this SLPX token, and first of all, I am going to do the SLPX tokens, just finish this up, because I do think that, people may want a dollar cost average into the pools that having issues with liquidity, right? Because they're solid pools, right? DAI Maker, DAI Matic. Those are the ones we're having trouble with. And maybe USD Maker and USD. I don't think USD Maker and USD Matic are a problem. I think it's just DAI. So, it makes sense for us to offer those for people to stream into. They're pretty good LP products, and they don't have really a yield, but at least they're liquidity pool tokens. So yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Other projects, Sonny, there was another project that spoke to us, right?
Yeah,
they had
yeah,
an interest, they were trying to do an interest bearing. So you might see, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they're called Good Ghosting. They were
Good
interested
ghosting.
in, they're basically like a gamified savings app on Polygon. And they're interested in potentially integrating us with their kind of savings game and, combine us with the yield bearing functionalities, which are kind of unclear, but it's a good opportunity to kind of like branch off into an integration partnership kind of there. So we'll stuff all
Yeah,
around.
as long as they're okay with like making sure that it's branded Ricochet tokens, not just like under the hood. Yeah. The other thing is other people will make these tokens. I mean, these are yield bearing super tokens. Like it's there's so many yield. I shouldn't even say yield bearing. Really what I should say is yield aggregating, because one of the mechanics that's really nice about this setup is that you don't need to harvest your rewards ever. The keeper is always harvesting your rewards. And as people downgrade, because it happens on the downgrade, every time someone downgrades, they're triggering the distribution. So it is a small additional fee, but it's actually not that expensive to do it, especially on Polygon. But yeah, so that's sort of what happens is periodically. And I guess we could move that into the harvest function, right? You can move it into the harvest function to do the distribution. But yeah, it also has to happen on the downgrade because it's like a checkpointing system. It's like we're going to distribute everything we've accrued at this time to everyone who currently holds the token, including the one downgrading. But it'll be a much better experience because you'll stream right into something like a liquidity pool or something like interest-bearing DAI, and you'll receive automatically back to you governance tokens and rewards in the form of Sushi, Matic, Idle, whatever it is that they're farming, and you never have to go harvest. You can literally, all you have to do is downgrade your Sushi, downgrade your Matic that you're receiving, and it's yours. So there's no harvest. Yeah, so you could also just stream to sell it, right? So you could stream your Matic and stream it to DAI-X if you want to sell it. You don't even have to downgrade it. So, and eventually we'll have a swap. I think that's something we should probably keep on the list. Sonny, maybe you can keep an eye on that because I don't think we have like listed as anywhere to work on. Though Fran keeps telling us we should do that.
Yeah, the swaps are useful. When you think of super tokens, currently, their main utilities, being able to use is for usage in the Superfluid protocol, and upgrade and downgrading to their underlying tokens. I think when you add the swapping functionality to it, let people kind of like swap from one token to another, you kind of make them more useful and transferable. So
and I think Fran from Superfluid actually said that they have the contract code.
They do. Someone worked on it, but they didn't really follow all the way through with it. But
well, he asked us.
There's a repo.
He asked us to just take that, which I think is a great idea. Take that and put a front end on it, which we could do really easily. It would probably cost like $3,000 or $4,000 to have the contractors just take a shot at it. Just make a real simple front end, make a page in Ricochet for it. So anyway, we'll have to keep that on the radar. I'm still working on the Launchpad, and then behind that, I'm going to do the Rex token. So
yeah,
but yeah, that's a front end thing for sure.
Yep. And
what else?
Yeah, so that's great. Obviously, you see a lot of arrows and lines and stuff here, but eventually we will be looking to make this a very simple, intuitive kind of thing to use. Just basically real-time invest into LP positions. So
yeah, the experience is always going to be the same, which is you're going to stream money, or I guess you could one-time swap money. So stream money into these contracts, and you'll receive back assets. It's just that in the future, you may receive more than one asset from a stream. You may be streaming and receiving SLP tokens and Sushi tokens and Matic tokens, right? So that will be the experience, which is you're just accruing multiple assets. Yeah, I think the primary use case, I really like Idle. I really like Idle DAI. When they first came out, I used it. I got a lot of idle governance tokens, which I inevitably sold to Ethereum. But the idle project and idle DAI is basically like yield aggregated DAI. So they just go around and they move it from place to place to get the best yield. And so you as an idle DAI holder get the yield, plus distribute their idle token subsidy. And I think they also said that they were going to have a Matic token subsidy similar to what you see with Aave and Sushi. But don't quote me on that. I had a brief conversation with the team. And at the time, I think they had like deployed, but they hadn't funded the contracts. So, all right, what
Awesome.
else?
That is everything.
That's everything, right?
Put a
Community
wrap
call
on
number
that.
4.
That is
Yeah, really
community
nice
call
putting
number
this together.
for sure. That is community call number 4. Thank you everyone for coming. If anybody has any questions, we can open up the floor to some discussion.
Yeah, but let's not record that because the people who came live can ask questions.
Yeah. So if you got questions, make sure you show up next time.
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
be having these community calls bi-weekly, 10 a.m.
Or ask ahead. You can also ask
on-
ahead of time in Discord, and we'll just answer it on the call. So I know the teller team. And this is something we should do. The teller team always circulates a document. Like I think it's always the same form, but they circulate a document to the community so people can ask questions. So maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But you
Keep
didn't
that in
attend
mind.
today. You didn't attend today, so we're gonna do questions offline. Recorded.
All right. See you guys next time.
See you. Oh,